tidal areas, they're talking about 8 to 10 inches of rain, which will create significant flooding. Those wind gusts in tidal areas and the surge, that will be a significant problem. We will also be expecting issues in the Hudson Valley, where you're talking about 8 to 10 inches of rain in the Hudson Valley, Westchester, Catskills. We know what happens when we get that amount of rain, especially in a situation like this, where the ground is already saturated. Creeks turn into raging rivers. During Superstorm Sandy, we saw entire towns carried away. So Long Island, Hudson Valley, Capital District, as the storm moves north, even some effect in the southern tier. Right now, by this storm track, New York City is largely spared. There will be heavy rainfall, some flooding. Eastern Queens may see a storm surge, especially in the Jamaica Bay area. Timing, tonight, expect the heavy rain to start. Tomorrow morning, you will see the winds pick up. You'll see the rain pick up. Tomorrow noon, we expect landfall of the hurricane on Long Island, and then about a 26-hour event, and it should be over by Monday, 2 p.m. Again, that depends on the tracks, and that depends on the weather reports, and that depends on the ultimate power of Mother Nature. People should be prepared for the effect of storm surges in tidal areas. Expect significant flooding in the Hudson Valley and in Westchester. Think back to Superstorm Sandy and what areas got flooded during Superstorm Sandy and what homes were damaged under Superstorm Sandy. And I would use that in these areas as a predictor of what could happen and could happen shortly. Expect significant power outages and prepare for it. My advice is you stock up today. Again, we know what power outages have done, and I would prepare for it on a personal level starting now. The state is doing everything we can to be ready with our emergency resources. We're pre-positioning heavy equipment all throughout Long Island, all throughout the Hudson Valley and the Capital District region. We're preparing water rescue teams for Long Island and swift water rescue teams for the Hudson Valley and in Westchester. I am deploying, as of today, 500 National Guard we are calling out with the necessary equipment that the National Guard brings with them, high water vehicles, etc. The state police will have approximately 1,000 personnel who will be on duty in the affected areas. Port Authority expects flights to be canceled. Obviously, I would check with your airline before you go to the airport tomorrow into Monday, maybe Tuesday. The MTA is preparing for the storm. They have their emergency equipment out, their flooding team out, their pumpers out, etc. They're going to cancel service in Long Island starting midnight tonight. They're planning to cancel service east of Ronkonkoma and east of Patchogue, and that would be at about midnight. They're also thinking of canceling the Harlem line service and the New Haven line service. That, again, would be about midnight tonight. But you should check with the MTA on the website, obviously, before you proceed to any of those trains. We're working with the power companies. I have told them clearly and convincingly, in my opinion, that this is what we pay the power companies to do, to be ready for storms. We've seen this movie before. We don't pay power companies to be ready to prepare power for sunny days. We pay them to prepare power when it's hard and to recover quickly after a storm. They have all been communicated with. They are calling in all additional personnel. They're calling in all additional private contractors. And we have made it abundantly clear to them that we do expect significant damage, and we want them to have the resources in place to deal with that damage quickly and professionally. I'm going to declare a state emergency declaration for Long Island, New York City, Westchester, Hudson Valley, and the Capital District region. Again, the Capital District region, as the storm hits Long Island and moves north right along the state line is the current track. And that's why you'll see it go right up north on the northern side on the eastern boundary. And that's Westchester, Hudson Valley, Capital District. And again, we're hoping that it misses New York City proper, but we're also keeping our eye on that. I spoke with the White House. The president is willing to sign what is called a pre-landfall emergency disaster declaration. To qualify for federal funding, there has to be a federally declared disaster, and you can actually request that a disaster be called pre-landfall. That's important because all these preparation costs for the state, for local governments, are then covered. And the president has said that he is prepared to sign that, and that is good news. I spoke with the head of FEMA. They are pre-deploying FEMA teams, which is the Federal Emergency Management. We coordinate with them, again, in the same areas, Long Island, New York City, where we expect some flooding, but then primarily Capital District and the Catskills. Our priority now is to protect life and safety. That's job one. Job two will be, once the storm is over, we assess the damage and we come up with a plan to rebuild. But focus now is on life and safety. We have probably the most experienced emergency management team this state has ever had in place. Mother Nature has created more emergencies for us than at any time in the state's history. My father was governor before me, as you know, for 12 years. A snowstorm was a natural emergency. Do we close the thruway or not? Was always the big question. This is a totally different environmental situation. Hurricanes, floods, they didn't happen in New York, but they do now. And we've gone through it a few times, and I feel confident saying to New Yorkers that they could not be in better hands in terms of an experienced team. Now, that doesn't mean that Mother Nature doesn't win. She wins. She wins. She won at Superstorm Sandy. She wins every time. But we will be doing everything that we can do to be prepared. We have briefed all the local governments. We briefed the Assembly. We briefed the Senate. We briefed the Lieutenant Governor on the situation. We briefed the White House. We are briefing federal officials. We're speaking with county executives. County Executive Stephen Ballone, Suffolk County Executive, has urged a voluntary evacuation of Fire Island. I think that is very important. I second the county executive's call. I think he's exactly right. If you are on Fire Island and you do not evacuate Fire Island now, I think you are putting yourself in a position of danger. And you're doing that needlessly. So please heed the county executive's warning. Last point is we can do everything we can do to get ready, but this is not our first rodeo, and at the end of the day, it is up to the people of the state to make the right decision. If you know you are in an area that tends to flood, if you know you are in a tidal area that tends to flood, if you know you are in an area that is subject to tidal surges, get out of that area now, please, and get to another and better place of safety. The main situation we have in these emergencies are trying to rescue people who stayed in place. And then they create a dangerous situation for everyone. I've been on the swift water rescue teams. I've been in the boats in the middle of storms, trying to get to people as their homes are getting washed away, trying to take children out of windows before the house gets washed away. If you don't take the right actions, not only do you put your life in danger, you then put the life in danger of the emergency workers who have to come to help you. And that is an unnecessary risk. I understand we didn't have the buildup that we had with Superstorm Sandy. And I understand that this is my first briefing on this. Superstorm Sandy, we did a number of briefings and people were acclimated. Don't be deceived by that. It's because the trajectory of the storm changed. And we have short notice. We're talking about tomorrow. So if you have to move, if you have to stock up, if you have to get to higher ground, it has to be today, please. Now, I know New Yorkers, and I know New Yorkers are tough. And I know their first instinct is, we don't have to go anywhere. We're going to batten down the hatches and we're going to be fine. I understand that instinct. And I understand the questioning of the weather reports. I got into a lot of trouble once with all the weather forecasters across the nation when I suggested that a weather forecast turned out to be incorrect. I understand that also. But we're talking about tomorrow. And we're talking about the day after tomorrow. So this is not a long-term projection. Normally, when you get this close to the event, the forecasts tend to be accurate. The track can move plus or minus, but the basic track doesn't change. So please, take this seriously. Yes, New York tough. We'll stay in place. We'll beat the storm. New York tough also means New York smart. And New York smart today means get out of harm's way, please. And with that, I'll turn it over to questions on this topic, please.
Thank you, Governor. If you'd like to ask a question, please use the raised hand function at the bottom of your window. We're going to take just a sec to compile the Q&A roster.
While we're doing that, the most recent update, 7 a.m. landfall tomorrow. Eye of the storm over Long Island, 11 a.m. And again, this is a large storm. Just because you're not on Long Island, don't say, well, then we're fine. It's Long Island, flooding in New York City, storm moves north, affecting Westchester, Hudson Valley, Capital District, right up the line.
Governor, your first question comes from John Campbell of Gannett. John, just please make sure your microphone is unmuted.
Hi, Governor. My question is, the state's in a position where there's going to be a change in leadership and the governorship within days. I mean, that could happen right smack in the middle of this storm recovery effort. And a big reason for that is because you decided on a 2-week transition. So I want to know, why was that 2-week transition appropriate? And why are you the appropriate person to lead this storm effort right now rather than Kathy Hochul?
Yeah, the 2 weeks was to have an orderly transition. There's a lot to transitioning a government. I'm the longest serving governor in the country right now. You don't just flip a switch and turn over a government. You don't want a mass exodus of people. You don't want a situation where you don't brief the incoming administration on the important projects, et cetera. Normally, you have, after an election, 2 months. You have November and December to transition governments. And transition, I was a transition director for my father's administration. I also worked in the transition of federal governments. Normally in 2 months, it's a hurry-up schedule. Briefing papers, policy papers, where are we on the massive construction projects we're doing, where are we on federal relations, what do we need to get done from Washington. There's a lot. So we said 2 weeks, which is a very short period of time. And I am governor today, and I am in charge. This is also something I've done a few times, John. So that's why.
Thanks very much, Governor. Your next question comes from Bill Mahoney, Political. Bill, your line is now open. Just unmute your microphone, please.
Thank you, Governor. And my question was going to be somewhat along those same lines, but what can we expect from you the next 48 hours? Are you going to be able to focus on this, or do you have transition stuff to deal with? Are you going to be moving? What's your involvement going to be as this unfolds?
I will be 100% available to the people of the state of New York every minute of the day, which I have been for my entire tenure as governor. I have been working on this already for the past 24 hours, and we will continue right through the storm, and then we'll assess the damage. Let's take one more question, guys.
Governor, your next question comes from Ryan Terranelli of the New York Law Journal. Ryan, your mic is open.
Great, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, thank you. So yesterday, your personal attorney, Rita Glavin, suggested that she had information that would call into question Charlotte Bennett's credibility. She did not specify what that information was or provide any evidence. Ms. Bennett's attorney says that might raise to the level of post-employment retaliation. What do you make of that? And why do you think it's appropriate for your attorney to make those remarks without providing significant evidence to back up the claim?
Yeah, I don't want to get into Albany politics, which is what has been going on for the past few months. This is about a storm briefing to save lives of New Yorkers. But you're the Law Journal. If you think justice is to accept a complaint from a person without investigation and without credibility determinations and without looking at past actions of that person, then you don't know what the justice system is. You've never been in a situation where you just reiterate complaints and you don't investigate them and you don't say whether or not the law even applies to them. That's not justice. That's a bulletin board posting complaints. Justice is, I hear the complaint. We welcome everyone to come forward, and that takes courage and that takes bravery. But we need to know the facts, right? I can make a complaint about you today. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not true. But that's why they do investigations. New Yorkers, please take this storm seriously, I know it's short notice, think Superstorm Sandy. That was a Category 1. This is a Category 1. Hopefully, we don't come anywhere near the damage of Superstorm Sandy. But we do not know. And as I sit here today, I cannot tell you, and none of the experts can tell you, whether or not the damage is going to be less or more than Superstorm Sandy. It depends on how fast the storm moves and where it goes. And we will be working around the clock, and we'll do everything we need to do to be prepared. As I said, this team has done this numerous times. We have more equipment than ever before. We have more personnel than ever before. But I can't substitute for intelligent action by New Yorkers. And I understand the instinct of we're going to shelter in place. Maybe the weather forecast is wrong. I don't want to leave my home. I can't tell you how many people I have, in the middle of a storm, helped out of a house, carrying everything on their back through floodwaters, with their children, putting them into boats in dangerous situations, and people saying to me, I should have left yesterday. I should have left yesterday. Please, please don't make that mistake. We'll update you constantly. And if there is a change and there's no rational causality to you leaving your house, I will tell you that. But we know what happened in the Catskills. We know what happened in the Hudson Valley. We know what happened in Long Island. We know what happened in the low-lying areas in Queens and in the Rockaways. We've seen this movie. We don't need to see it again. Please act responsibly. Thank you very much.